Well, this is the my intro splash page. I don't know if you guys know this, but I had a life before I started my restaurant, and that's what we're going to start with that. Come on. Oh, there we go. So I can't even believe how much time has gone by. I've been running my restaurant for over 11 years now. I'm hitting my 12th anniversary this June. After I started the restaurant business, like a year after, only because my wife wouldn't let me do them simultaneously, I started a jet ski rental business. And actually, my purpose for the jet ski rental business was only that I wanted to bring more people into my restaurant. And I figured it would be really great to advertise that my restaurant has jet ski rentals. So that's why I started it. I started with 2 jet skis, literally 2 jet skis. And within the first week, what should I say? It was sufficient. It was not enough. So we got another couple of jet skis, and we doubled our fleet practically every year for like the first 4 years. Right now, the jet ski business actually has about 30 jet skis. We became the largest jet ski rental business in New York City, that is. And I ended up selling that business this past spring. So this past summer was the first summer since 10 years ago that I didn't operate. And that was a nice relief. I was actually built for this, both the restaurant business and the jet ski rental business, because of my entire life of loving to go out to great restaurants. And by great, I don't necessarily mean fine dining, but really great restaurants. And I love going on vacation. I ski and I jet ski. And I'm the guy that doesn't hang out with his family or friends most of the time. I'm the one that's hanging out at the shack with the guys that are running the jet ski business, just playing paddleball or going into the water or jumping in the boat to be a spotter. I would hang out with all those people all the time. And I loved it. And just opening up the restaurant really brought back such a good part of who I was, which is why I got into the restaurant business in the first place. I was in technology for 30 years, or maybe a little bit over that. I dealt with all phases of application development. I was at the very beginning when applications were beginning to become mature. So from development to database design, relationship management, I certainly became a subject matter expert on a number of different subjects. I was somewhat of a serial entrepreneur in that with the tech space particularly. I had a number of different tech companies that I started and developed and grew or shrank and over that 30-year period. My technology is still licensed by the Bank of New York. Actually, it's BNY Mellon now. And that technology that they license that manages their clearance and settlement application, which does $3 to $5 trillion a day of business. That's my technology that they license for that. And I mean, I was a pretty sought after technologist at that time. I built the very first internet bond trading application and many other marketplaces in addition to that. I've worked at the very largest banks, and what happened was my partners at the time, at the last technology company that I had, my partners were very greedy, and I started to wander away from my moral well-being, and to the point where I was very disconnected from people, and I didn't recognize myself in some ways, and I just left. I went cold turkey, and I started the restaurant. And that was really to reconnect. And I've been doing that ever since. So that's a little bit of my background. After being in the restaurant business for some time, I ended up getting destroyed from Hurricane Sandy. And when I rebuilt the restaurant and I rebuilt my home and I purchased my restaurant business, and I had no money to do that, but I figured out a way. I look back and I realized that I was able to do these things by putting the same activities in place that I'd done for my customers and clients all along. And that is to break apart a problem, to put it into its pieces, and to accomplish each piece as you can. And you start with the most important things and you work your way down. And from that, and I saw that there was no technology in the restaurant space. Otherwise, I would have used it. My wife was always saying to me things like, Rob, you're a horrible manager. And I would say to her, it's not that I'm a horrible manager, because she never saw me manage in my technology role. She just saw me manage, or lack of manage, in my restaurant role, which is our business that we share. And I couldn't explain this to her for a while. It wasn't that I wasn't a good manager, or maybe I am, maybe I'm not a good manager, but it was really more the issue that I had no way to account for what people are doing. And when you don't have accountability, I find it very difficult to manage. Like, I can ask any of my people to do an activity for me, and they will definitely do it, or most likely. But if I ask them to take one step beyond what they just did and now do that activity next month, they probably will not do it. And it's not because they don't want to, it's just because they're going to forget. And this was really the crux of my problem. How can I assign all of these tasks to people? Because the tasks that I generally do are not daily tasks. They're tasks that have a frequency of a week, weekly at the minimum, or monthly, or ad hoc once in a while. It could be, I have one activity that I have to do once every 5 years. That's they call it a hydrostatic test. And if you have a restaurant that has a sprinkler system, and it's a wet sprinkler system, this is a test you have to do once every 5 years. How do you remember to do that? And that was really the basis of my new business, On Hand. What started On Hand for me was, I guess the seedling of an idea was I ended up dropping an insurance. It was my workers' comp insurance. I ended up at the end of the day having a 2-week gap, and because I had new insurance that came in. That was a very difficult summer for me, that summer after Hurricane Sandy. All I could do was figure out how to get myself back together. So I ended up with this 2-week gap. At the end of the year, New York Labor Department sent me a letter. And in that letter, they fined me about a year's premium worth of a fine. Plus, they notified me that they had gone ahead and put an insurance policy in place for that 2-week period. And that's like forced place insurance. That insurance policy I had to pay for. That insurance policy was about twice the annual policy for a full year. So between the fine, my regular policy, and the forced place policy, in a year that I was desperately devastated, I had to pay 4 times what I should have paid for workers' comp. And I said, never again. And I started to organize myself that way. Now, I created a spreadsheet, and I got really organized about that. And that was really, more than anything else, the foundation for what On Hand is. There's other things that affect small businesses, particularly restaurants, gas stations, construction businesses, daycare. Businesses like these are highly regulated. There's a lot of compliance that we need to do. And also, these are the kinds of businesses that have a lot of small business ownership. When we violate, or when we get violated because we're not in conformity, these fines are very disproportionate compared to what our larger competitors would face. Even though the fine might be, let's say, $1,000 fine, for my business, $1,000 fine compared to, let's say, McDonald's getting $1,000 fine, it's a different magnitude. And of course, all of these regulations, they hamper my growth. My growth as a small business, if I have to pay attention to all of these things and I can't assign tasks because there's no accountability, and I get fined and I have to go to the Oath Tribunal Court, these things take me away from doing what I want to be doing, and that is growing my business, or maybe spending time with my family. So I came up with a solution. I'm going to have a dashboard solution that gives, from the owner's perspective, a very high level point of view. I put a little bit of artificial intelligence into it. I have a very rich alerting capabilities, whether it's email alerts or text messages. I assign responsibilities. I can track progress. And I make sure that the services that you're paying for are not overpriced. And the way that I do that, I let you know. I let you know how much, what you're paying, how that compares to the average price. But of course, my goal is that I have time. If I want to sit around watching TV or be with my family, that should be my prerogative. If I want to spend that time building my business or maybe opening another restaurant, that's also my prerogative. But I need to be able to get the time. And that's what On Hand does. It puts time back into the place where it belongs. This is a snapshot of my dashboard. I'm not going to present my application. And my dashboard is continually changing, especially in these days. So it's improving. The red on there shows you what's past due, and the yellow is coming due soon, and green means you're okay. And I divide it into my operations here, business development, and legal activities. I am not going to present the workings of my application though. The benefits that I get out of this, of course, in addition to time, is I'm adding transparency. I will know what I am paying for. I will know if the vendors, is a vendor supposed to make a mess after they leave? Am I the one that's supposed to clean up the garbage? Or do I just have the sloppy vendor that's coming in and fixing the HVAC? I want to make sure that we don't go to court and that we don't get sued and that the permits are up to standard. But if they're not, and I do get violated, I can manage the workflow. There's nobody that's keeping track of your lawsuits. Believe me, I have lawsuits, and every business like mine gets sued, every one of them. And generally, lawsuits take a long time, especially these days. By the way, you can tell me if I'm running out of time because I don't want to step on anybody, but I am almost done, by the way.
You're still good.
Okay, great. I'm just ripping through this kind of quickly. The things like lawsuits and violations, there's workflow involved. For a violation, I might have to get something notarized. Something that gets notarized might be like a certification that I finished something, I notarize it and I send it in. I might have to go to court. I might need to get a contractor in. I might need to evidence all this. There is no place for small businesses that like capture this. A lawsuit, my God, there's documents and depositions and meetings with attorneys and nowadays even Zoom conferences. Keeping track of all this really is up to you. I've had lawsuits go on for so long that the attorneys have switched, because the attorneys have left the companies. And not only that, I've had lawsuits go on so long that the law firms themselves have been switched out by the insurers that represent me, that protect me. So when all of these changes happen, who do you think is left making sure that you have all of that information in a safe place? If I have to fire one of my employees for some kind of cause, for example, let's say I have an employee that's perpetually tardy. It's my responsibility to make sure that they get a letter that says you're being late. And if you do this, if you're late again, I am going to fire you. Now, in a normal size company, and what I mean by normal size is companies with 30, 40, 50 people and larger, you have an HR department. But most companies my size do not have an HR department. One of the functions of an HR department is exactly this. I'm going to send out a letter and make sure that you know that you're being tardy, but everything falls into these small businesses, 20 people, 10 people businesses. It falls on very few hands to do all this. It's impossible to remember. And if you do remember, it's impossible to keep track of it all. On Hand does that. Let's see. Of course, competing better is part of transparencies and just having more time to be able to focus on that. You don't really care about my marketing strategy. I do have one. Let's put it at that. I think this is an interesting point about On Hand. I am building a workforce of varied people because I think that some people are underrepresented that need more opportunities. For one, ex-military. These are people that are highly trained, highly motivated to do a good job, but maybe haven't been in a regular 9-to-5 yet. I want to give these our vets an opportunity to walk into the business world and get prepared. Stay-at-home moms and dads. I think that they offer such an incredible value, but they don't have a 9-to-5 window to work in. Maybe they have an hour or two while their child or children are taking a nap, or maybe they have 3 or 4 hours because their kids are going to kindergarten or first or second grade. I want to give an opportunity for these slivers of time because On Hand can offer that. And this really is almost done. By the way, one of the areas of workforce that I really want to hire, I have the ex-military that I mentioned, the stay-at-home parents. There's 2 other categories. One are people from underserved neighborhoods. I think there's a lot of opportunity that I can offer. And I should say this, part of my motivation for On Hand is legacy. And I'm thinking that I can do something real, I can leave a really good, positive thing in this world, both for my children, because they're working with me with On Hand, and I want to put something awesome into their hands. But I think legacy is I'm starting to think about that for myself. I hate to say, but I am. And I think that On Hand could be a little bit of that for me. And part of the legacy that I'd be talking about is knowing that I've done a lot of good. And I believe helping people in underserved neighborhoods, and I live all around, there's underserved neighborhoods all around me. I would really like to start making professionals out of people who may not have options. All right, and then the last, I saved the best for last. The last category of people that I would really like to give opportunities are those like myself, perhaps, who may have aged out of whatever work they used to be doing. And I think that, man, I know me, I may not be as spry as I was 30 or 40 years ago, but I still have a lot of kick in me. And there's no reason why I'm not the only one. There's plenty of people my age who have plenty to offer, who just don't have the opportunities. I want to make On Hand a platform for that.
Some even a little older.
Yeah. Case in point, Harvey, you're amazing. You were asking, Fred, you were asking me about, or somebody, I think it was Fred, about the, or Harvey maybe, about the pieces, like Outlook has a task manager, and the reality is parts of On Hand you can find in other services. I've put together a whole that I didn't even mention the most important thing, and that, believe it or not, it's the consulting services. I have 2 products, and this gets into my pricing. I have 2 services that I offer. One I call a jumpstart service. The other is a business coach. The jumpstart, I sit down with you, whether it's a Zoom meeting or in person, and I help you gather your activities and your tasks and the projects and your orders and whatever you're putting, and I help you get that into On Hand as a starting point. That's $300. That one is not free, but it does get you a long way into understanding how to use On Hand. You don't need to watch any videos. It's intuitive enough. It gets you starting to be comfortable with the interface, and of course, a warm, friendly person helping you like get your act together. The other part is the coach service. Coach service is $40 a month, essentially $10 a week. And what the business coach is, and this is the thing that we've been doing that our customers are so happy with, and I knew it would be, but now I'm seeing the results. We contact you once a week. It could be a 5 or 10 minute call. It could be a little bit longer than that. Right now, we're giving extra time because all of our customers, we have so few customers and we want to make sure that they're really happy with On Hand. But what we do is we just take a look at your dashboard and make sure that everything is looking right on it. That have you completed these? Is this completed but just not put into On Hand? We make sure that you're basically updating On Hand. Our coach service is essentially assuring that people stay engaged and continue to use On Hand. So those are two ways that we make money. Let's see. As far as a growth, you know, I'm starting right now in New York City. I don't think that there's any geographic boundaries for me, and I mean that globally. So eventually, I would love to see On Hand across the whole world, but I'm starting now, and it's also a pipeline for services. There's no doubt that as this service, as the number of people that use On Hand grow, I will have more opportunities. Now, another thing that I do with On Hand is, and I've already done my first one. So Alan doesn't realize it, but Alan's company, Fidens Insurance, has already benefited from On Hand. I had a referral request from one of our few customers for an insurance broker, and I gave that referral request to Dan over at Alan's company. And I believe that they are going to get some new insurance business because of On Hand. So now that itself, I told Dan that would be free, but that is normally a $25 fee. That will be a $25 fee. I should say normally, that was my first giveaway, but it should be a sale. So between the coach service of $40 a month, the Jumpstart, a one-time $300 fee, $25 for referrals, which will become a referral marketplace when it's big enough for that. And then the third is, and I didn't tell you this before, although it's free to sign up and use On Hand, that's for one person. If you want to start assigning activities to other people in your company, it's going to be $2.50 a month for each person you add on. So if you have a team of, let's say, 4 people, the first one is free, and the other 3 people are going to be $2.50 a month. So that's $7.50 for your team to be for your team to be able to assign tasks and share information.